So today I'll show you how to create a very simple chat messaging platform using just HTML and JavaScript. This will probably be one of a few parts, but the project itself is very simple and requires pretty much no prior knowledge. Okay, so I'm going to start with a new project in VS Code. You can use any editor you want, but I'm just using this because it makes project management pretty simple for beginners especially. I've opened a new folder called Chatter. This is going to be my project name. And I'm going to click this file icon to create a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. HTML files are sort of like documents, but for the internet. They basically set out the layout for every website that we later style and we add functionality to. But all the elements that you see on any website, such as Google or YouTube, they're all written using HTML. So let's start with the very basic tags of HTML. This is a HTML tag. Well, literally it says HTML. So I'm going to add a comment here. So HTML has two main elements. It has a head and it has a body. Head and a body. The difference between these two is that we typically put everything in the head that's sort of invisible and describes the website. It's all the metadata of the website. And everything in the body is what's visible. It's the layout, it's all the elements on the page, it's what the user sees directly. As an example, we might put something like the title into the head. And I'm just gonna make the title Chatter app. And just to test our program, I'm also gonna add a header, just like you might in any document, H1. And I'm gonna make the header say Chatter. Okay, so let's test this program. There's a few ways you can do this. You can either navigate to your desktop and or wherever you save this and open it in a browser, or you can go here and click this button with a bug and a play arrow, and then play run debug, and then open it in any browser you want. So this is how it looks in Chrome. It says Chatter, and up here we can see Chatter app. So it works. So now we actually want to create the elements that are required for a chat platform. The main element, and probably most important one, is the ability to send messages. So we need something that lets the user type stuff in. And for that, we use an element called input. This actually doesn't need to be closed, but just for clarity, I'll close it like this. So this input is just an empty box like this. I can type wherever I want. Hello. Now, right now I can enter and delete things, but nothing really happens. If I press enter, it doesn't do anything because we haven't programmed or told the website what we want to do with this text. We can just input whatever we want. So let's actually make this do something. We have this input, but to actually make the website interactive, we need to use JavaScript. Let's create a script tag. Now, the script tag is very different from any other tag in HTML in that everything inside of it is suddenly JavaScript code. Here, I'll illustrate that by writing a comment. You'll probably notice that the comment here is very different from the comments I wrote in HTML because now it's abiding the rules of JavaScript and not HTML. Okay, so let's actually make this website interactive. What I want to do is let's say I'll add a button. And I'll call this button Click Me. When I click this button called Click Me, I want it to alert whatever is inside this input box that the user typed in. So first, the way I need to do that is by somehow finding the input box using JavaScript, because right now it has no identifier. Let's create an ID, literally an identifier. And the ID will be user input. So now we can identify this, but we also need a function that is called when the button is clicked. So I'm going to say onClick, and I'm going to call this function click. And don't forget these parentheses because it's a function call. So here in the script tag, I'm going to write function click and then curly brackets. Instead of tags like this, like we use in HTML, we have curly brackets to symbolize the start and end of things in JavaScript. Okay, so let's save and test our code. So it works, it just isn't visible that it works. It does call this function, except this function currently has no code inside of it. So I'll actually write alert. Now I need some way to pass the message. And the message is stored within this input. So let's first create a variable to store the contents of the input. I'm going to call it input content. I'm going to set it equal to. Now, the way we find things within a website is by referencing the document called the DOM in HTML. Everything that is in HTML is in the DOM object within JavaScript. So this is how it looks. Document .get element by ID. Look at the capitalization here if you're writing it down exactly, because if one capital letter is missing, it might not understand what you're trying to do. Parentheses. And here we enter the element ID as my editor is telling me here. And we have to do that in quotation marks, just as we do up here. And it's called user input. So this is how we find our element. But we don't just want the whole element, we want the value of it. So I do dot value. So now I save the entire element content, but I want to alert it, so I put it in the alert here, input content. And if we run this, now if I say hello and press the click me button, it alerts our message. So now we have a very basic interactive element. We have the shell of a website, and we have a button that alerts whatever the user enters. Next time we'll actually cover the layout of our entire platform and begin with sending messages from one client to another.